Hello, everybody. How are you doing? So first thing I want to say is really the. One second. Patience is a virtue. Okay. There we go. All right. So first thing is that WebRTC is broken. Not WebRTC, customer experience is broken, right? So WebRTC is not broken. If it is, I'm in trouble because I'm the guy who builds it. No, no. The customer experience is broken, right? And you know, I'd like to talk about the fact that I was talking to the vice president of contact center for a bank last week, and he was telling me, he says, you know, David, he says, we just rolled out our new mobile application, and you know, it was amazing. You know, we rolled it out about 6 months ago, and then within 30 days, our first call resolution rates in our contact center went up by 5%. And he says, you know, I found it very odd that they would just dramatically increase that quickly, because if that's the case, then that means that, wow, that's our, you know, that's a great improvement for my agents. And he said when he looked into it, he says that it was actually wrong. He says our first call resolution rates actually dropped by 20%. And I asked him, well, you know, how did you figure that out? And he said, because our new mobile application was the first call. When our customers wanted to get self-service, they would go to the app, and when they couldn't get their answers on the app, they were then calling into the contact center. So it was actually second calls that were coming into the contact center. And he said, you know what the worst part was? They were already pissed off because they'd gone to the mobile application, tried to use it, couldn't get what they wanted, and then they moved over to some other channel for support. You know, and you know, so I'm thinking about this and I'm saying, geez, you know, we live in this world, right? I mean, you know, we develop WebRTC applications because we want to engage the consumer. I mean, if you think about it, right, WebRTC wasn't originally designed to be this replacement for SIP. It was meant to be something new. It was meant to be an extension out to the rest of the world and allowing them to communicate and facilitate communications better. However, we as consumers do business with companies, and we want to be able to get support from companies. So when we do actually use WebRTC, there has to be that on-ramp to the enterprise. But WebRTC in and of itself doesn't improve customer experience. It is a tool that can be used in order to create a deeper relationship with the client. It can be used in order for you to be able to tell whether or not your clients are happy, sad, so on and so forth. But it's not a tool to actually fix the problem of customer support. So that being said, since the amount of opportunity in developing WebRTC applications is huge when it comes to customer service type applications, we have to think about what else has to be there, right? So, you know, the emerging technology, they're not easily onboarded to the enterprise, right? I mean, if you think about it, right, it took what, 20 some odd, you know, Bruce, you're out there. I mean, how many years did it take for SIP to actually become the standard within enterprises? 23 years in total? Yeah, but now that it's there, it's going to be that much longer before it actually has a chance of being displaced with something that's better, right? So it's not going to be this revolutionary thing where, you know, I can't talk to, there's no CIO in the world I talk to who says, I'm going to rip all this stuff out and replace it with WebRTC. So they're looking at WebRTC as an enhancement to their existing infrastructure, right? They do want to use it. They want to use it at, you know, like for instance, the work-at-home employees. You know, I can reduce the cost per foot, you know, employee in regards to how they communicate with the enterprise. So all those things are there, but it does create a complexity because I got to be able to work with all that old crap that's in my network, right? You know, like the Avayas and the Mitels and you know, Roams. You know, if anybody's that old. So, see, somebody got that joke. But anyways, so. And the third problem is that the consumer expectation is extremely high. I mean, come on. I mean, you know, I Skype with my kids in college. It's the way I get to see them every week, and I get to see whether or not they're healthy and, you know, whether or not they decided they were going to grow a beard or get a tattoo or any of the things that we worry about, right? So you know, so my expectations are really high. WebRTC gives us a facility in order to basically achieve those high expectations. But those high expectations can be one way because we're dealing with old equipment. So sometimes if you're dealing with a video endpoint that's inside of an enterprise, you know, hey, I'm only a manager, so they only refresh my desktop, you know, once every, you know, 3 years or 4 years. So I'm looking at an old webcam staring at me, and then I don't want to look that way onto somebody else's screen. So how do I actually get a more positive experience, right? And, you know, the biggest problem with the contact center is not whether or not I can put video in it. That's the easy part. The hard part is I got to find agents that I'm willing to put in front of a camera. I got to train them how to actually interact visually, not just through a script, not just through their voice. So these are problems that the enterprise faces, right? So, you know, and the fact is that, you know, we all know the statistics. If there is an alternative channel, I want to use it. I don't want to actually have to interact with somebody via voice, but people do, and you know why they do? It's still today the most reliable way for you to get your problem solved. So they pick up the phone and they call that 1-800 number and they get the IVR, and then they end up speaking to an agent, and you're communicating with the agent, and you do so because you know that if I ask the wrong question, I can change my question based against what the agent's response is going to be live. You know, where computers are very inflexible, right? I mean, not everybody has Siri, right? And even then, Siri doesn't always get it right, you know? So, as you know, it just, you know, you want to make sure that in your enterprise, there's an entire series of things that you need to do in order to gauge the customer better, right? So, here's the challenge, right? This is why I say the user experience is broken. So first of all, by the time I'm on the website, I'm actually interacting with the website, I'm going to buy something, and then at that point in time, I'm having a problem because for some reason, I didn't get my tracking number, or it doesn't show that it's reflected properly. You know, I was actually talking to a friend of mine, he's retired, and, you know, he just bought an iPad mini, and he thought that was great because he now has, you know, new tech. And he says, it was amazing. He says, I got on the Apple website and they ordered this iPad mini and they sent me the tracking information. And he says, I've been monitoring it ever since it left the warehouse in China. And he says, I saw it go from China to Germany, you know, because he lives in the UK, so to Germany. And then he says, it should be getting to my house 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. And I'm telling him, I says, you know, Tim, I says, you know, but you know, we do customer engagement management software, right? I mean, we build WebRTC and we extend the contact center, we improve the customer experience. I said to him, I says, see, this is the problem, right? You never ever spoke to anybody. You never had to call anybody. So by the time you actually do need to speak to somebody, you got a problem. You've chosen to take a non-interactive route by the systems. But then what ends up happening is if I'm on the website and I do have a problem, that's when I actually say I want to call somebody. And what's the first thing that happens? Bang, press 1 for sales, press 2 for support, press 3 for this. And then on top of that, it then asks you who you are. And I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, I'm logged in, I'm on my computer, I used your click to call button, you should know who I am, and you don't. So this experience is broken, the context is lost. And then the worst part is even after I collect that information, by the time I get to the agent, 9 times out of 10, they ask me the same questions yet again. And it's all because the way the systems are designed from front to back, from the client consumer to the agent on the back, is not designed to handle the context of the conversation, and it's certainly not designed to handle the multiple channels of that communication, whether it's voice, video, instant messaging, presence, email, chat, you know, social media, whatever, Twitter. You know, so you Twitter fiends out there have a broken experience. So what do, right? So you have to build not just WebRTC as a means of video. And you know, I'd love to be able to show you something, but we didn't have a dongle to connect it. But come by our booth at the expo, and we'll show you some amazing stuff that we're doing with WebRTC. So for instance, we actually have the ability to, from the video of a person, detect their emotion within a 90+% degree of accuracy. So we can tell whether people are happy, sad, comfortable, neutral, angry. And then that, along with our sentiment tracking modules for instant messaging and chat, which is the data channel, we can actually then provide an overall measure of whether or not you're having a positive or negative customer experience. And then we pass that into the contact center. And we take the identifying information. And then we pass that along so that by the time you get to the agent knows who you are, what you're doing. It's not just a CRM screen pop. It's telling you, the agent, that you were on chat yesterday complaining with your friends because on Facebook you posted bad news about the product you just bought from us. We can tell that you're in a chat session with an agent yesterday and you had a negative experience, so I can now make decisions about that context. I can bring up relevant documents, and you know, we're not trying to replace the contact center, we're letting them do the knowledge management and content management, but what we're doing is we're bringing all of that conversation together. So video is more than just looking at somebody. Video is about the data that has to go with it. But are you ready for it, right? So this is the real world considerations. If you look at the traditional enterprise infrastructure, there's a whole bunch of legacy equipment there, right? So we provide that on-ramp, that WebRTC gateway, right? So last year and the year before that, when we talked about how we were early adopters of WebRTC, we didn't build WebRTC. We didn't build video. We built a gateway to get that into the enterprise, okay? And I think we were like one of the first in the market with an enterprise-grade solution. So we now, 2 years later, have real-world implementation discussions, experience that we can discuss in regards to how hard was it to get there. And I'll give you an example. The biggest one was this browser, right? Browser, hey, our enterprise is Internet Explorer, Okay, yeah, you can use the Chromium plugin, but when is IE going to get there? And then the next one is, yeah, well, we have a problem with basically browser plugins and downloads in the enterprise, right? So we don't allow that. We have to test it first, and we manage the desktop, with regards to those plugins. So if the browser changes, that breaks the experience. And then, yeah, I've got these devices in my network, and sure, I'm buying some modern devices, but 80% of what I own is old Cisco 8941s. And I only have 10% of their newer technology, right? So how do I interface with all those things? So how do you federate and mediate to all of those things? So that's very important. So that is why we built what we did build, right? So we didn't choose to go down the path that a lot of you guys have gone down, which is building these really cool apps with WebRTC. We built the on-ramp to get those apps to be able to communicate with the rest of the world, right? And so then we basically jumped on it with context center extensions. So as a result, what you're looking at is, in order to be successful, you got to look at where are you going with what you're doing. Is it really cloud-based or can it be enterprise-based? Most enterprises, even though they're moving rapidly to the cloud, still have a majority of their infrastructure which is fixed. So you got to be able to support the enterprise in the enterprise. What's their data center look like? How's the communications? The biggest issues that we've had so far, QoS handling of RTP within the network. It's not been whether or not we can connect. That's actually been the easier part of our job. The harder part of our job is to help the customer understand whether or not their networks are video ready. Because if they're not video ready, you can have the best product in the world and you will have a negative experience. Because everybody expects that Skype level quality. Everybody expects that telepresence room level quality. So that requires a lot of work. And then the applications. So, you can think of a million of them. And enterprises have, their own long tail. Each enterprise has a long tail of apps it wants to achieve. So these are different use cases that we've actually been involved with between either us and directly with our partners or us and our customers through Cisco, who basically resells our product. So, healthcare applications we've done, home consultation for medical advisors, high net worth advisory skills. We've had to build WebRTC for an iPad in order to be able to support that platform. We actually had to build a plugin for WebRTC for Safari because Safari doesn't support WebRTC yet. So in order to get the level of support necessary for these large enterprises, we actually had to build workarounds for non-adoption browsers and devices that can't support it. We had to build a VP8 to H.264 transcoder. Now they're commercially available, but they didn't exist at the time. So what are the enterprise benefits? This is all gobbledygook. It really comes down to the fact that in order to take advantage of this new technology, the benefits are I have to be thinking out of the box and how I treat my customers and what experience do they expect from me when they interface with me using their platforms of choice. And if you're not thinking that way, you're not thinking the right way. So a little bit about us. We were part of a company called ThroughPoint, and ThroughPoint was a pretty large consulting organization, and we started a software company within it. And then after we matured it to a certain point, we actually did a spin-out of the software portion of the business, and now we're our own standalone entity. But we're going to be over on the trade show floor. Come see the cool stuff that we've done. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you.